Know that I'm always honest. Stay away from those who are toxic. Keep them out your face, no way, you don't want them, yeah. Don't try to drain my energy. The enemy is everything. It's mentally, unhealthily spreading like a rare disease, but I won't let it get to me. I don't need your therapy. I can leave a legacy of leading by intensity. Come on, we can fight this. Freedom is priceless. Spread just like a virus. Living in a crisis. Do you feel courageous? Do you seek greatness? Trust me, you can take it. Go on and take your aim. Yeah. Built to last with the webs I'm weaving. I can change the past with all I'm achieving. Got my foot on gas, never stop competing. If you break like glass, then this life's gonna eat 'em. Make mistakes real fast, then you learn how to beat 'em. If you take off the cast, you can see all the healing. If the pain's in the past, move on from the grave and put your foot on the gas. No, never stop competing, yeah.
Okay, we're on. I was going to keep us back there and just let it end, but I thought, no, we want to get to this.
Yeah.
Hi, everybody who's out here joining us now. Great to see you. This is my guest, SapperCop. Hi, Zapper. How are you doing?
Good.
Yeah, look good, too. Glad to see that you're healthy and got through everything you did.
Oh, yeah.
And lost all that extra poundage. Now you're beefing up. That's good. Anyway, for those of you who don't know who SapperCop is, he's mainly on Twitter, but he's found his way into some Discord and now onto YouTube. But I'm not the first. I can't take claim for being the first with this one. But anyway, he's XLE. Anyway, just let him explain who he is. Go ahead.
Well, I guess I'll start with just a little bit of background. I'm a veteran. I did 10 years in the Army. Got to do what every man dreams of: shoot guns and blow shit up. So that's what I did for about 10 years. And then I did some odd jobs after that before I got into law enforcement. Did law enforcement for several years, and unfortunately came to realize that I didn't have the right mentality for it. It takes a lot more patience to be a cop than I was willing to give, I guess, is a way to put it.
That's honest.
No, yeah. I mean, you have to be honest with yourself. If I would have continued on, who knows what could have happened.
Yeah, do you had a temper or just
not necessarily a temper, but not necessarily a temper. But just, like for instance, when somebody spits in your face, it calls for a very visceral reaction, and you can't really have that type of reaction like I would normally had, like in the military, for example.
Yeah.
And then I witnessed some things in court with some other officers that just didn't sit well with me in terms of how the system operated, and I just came to the decision that it just wasn't gonna be for me. You spend more time doing paperwork and dealing with the jackasses of the world than you do actually making a difference. At least that's how I felt from my perspective.
Right.
So,
well, hey, that's good that you've seen that. I mean, you need more. Honestly, you need a lot more officers that are out there that are willing to see that they either there's things they can improve about themselves, or it's just not for them. You know what I mean? And I guess you really don't know that until you do it. Correct. You just have no idea while you're in the school learning these things that what it's going to be like out there. They don't give you a class on real life.
Nope. and you can only train so much. You're going to see things out on the street that you're just going to have to use your own intuition and common sense to deal with. There's no, specific training that's going to prepare you for it. Unlike what the media would have you believe. It's just not,
exactly. Yeah.
And there's times when you've got a second or two to make a decision. And that's
life changing.
Life or death. Yep, exactly.
Life changing. And that, who wants that responsibility without really being able to mentally know what you're doing is the right thing, the way it should be. And people should not have a problem seeing what you did. You know what I'm saying? So, because defending yourself for something that was life-saving to you or to others has got to be really hard to do. Yeah. I can't imagine it myself. You know what I mean? You have to defend what you did, even if it was taking somebody's life. There's, you know what I mean? There's going to get, I'm glad I never had to make that decision.
We've gone too much into a Monday morning quarterback type of situation where all these people, sitting behind their screens like this who have never done law enforcement before want to judge somebody that's been doing it. And decide, well, I wouldn't have done that, or I wouldn't have said that. Well, you weren't there, and you
Right,
weren't in there.
exactly. That
So,
perfect example of you have to wear my shoes,
yep.
be walking in my shoes, right? So,
Yeah.
okay, so on from that, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I just thought it was very
Oh, you're good.
interesting.
Yeah.
You,
So, after I stopped doing that, I moved around a little bit. I've had quite a number of jobs. You name it, I've done it. And then I've had a friend of mine that turned me on to an insurance position, and I would have never imagined myself working in an office because I was always usually the physical labor type.
yep.
But I was like, what the heck? It was with a great company. Figured I'd give it a shot, and here I am, 15 years later.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, it's a job I enjoy because it uses the one
Right.
muscle that not a lot of people put to work anymore.
That's true. It's very
And
true.
yeah, so it was what late 2015, right after MAM came out.
Mhm.
A couple of people at work approached me that knew I was former law enforcement and asked if I'd seen this documentary. And I said, well, I've seen the previews for it, and I've seen like commercials for it, but I haven't actually seen it. And they're like, well, you need to watch this, and we're interested in getting your perspective for
Yep.
being a former cop, and let us know what you think. And I was like, all right. And so I started watching it, and I think I got into about halfway into episode 3, and I had to stop and say, am I being punked?
Yeah, is this real? Is
Yeah,
this
is
real?
this a
Yeah.
Blair Witch Project kind of thing going on
Yeah.
here? So I Googled Stephen Avery, and sure enough, it was the real
I did
deal.
the same thing. I thought
Yeah,
this is not real. I did. I had to Google it. I said, this is not real. This
yeah,
is not a
it was not,
documentary's true story. This is a story. So
yeah.
I thought,
So I kind of then I started watching it again from the perspective that, okay, this is a real thing.
mhm.
Um, and yeah, once I was done with it, I knew that was something I had to dig into a little bit more, because it was just insane what was in the documentary.
Right.
Um, and so from there, I found Reddit
Mhm.
basically by accident, and that was the old MAM sub, of course. And then from there, I started finding YouTube channels, and I found Eric Koze. I started watching Koze's channel,
Mhm.
and then here we are, 6 years later now.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a long time. It is. It is a long time. So, what is your main questions that people ask you about? But I know for me, it's always been protocol. How
Yeah,
they follow that's because I am a firm
or
believer
don't
that
follow for that matter.
right. I'm a firm believer that it starts at the investigation point. The first officers on the ground there make a big difference in the case. That's my firm belief. Okay. And how they handle it from that point of arriving, from what they do on there, from that point on, is greatly needed to be followed in a certain way with certain amount of documentation, certain amount of only people that can be there, like not letting just people just trample all over everything or handling different things. I believe that starts an investigation. So your point of view from the police side of it is what?
Yeah, I mean, that was the things that stood out the most to me was who they were allowing access to crime scenes. Number one, you never let civilians have access to a crime scene, like
Right.
Ryan, for instance.
Right.
Um, it's just not something you do unless they are a witness, a specific witness that needs to see something.
Mhm.
Then maybe. But so the access, number one, and then number two is, yeah, there's protocols you have to follow, and those protocols are there for a reason.
Mhm.
There's evidence collection procedures for a reason. There's video and picture protocols for a reason.
Mhm.
And the fact that none of those were followed, any of them at all,
Right.
it really kind of leaped out at me as to how is that possible? How are they running a murder investigation and not following a single protocol in this case? They're not taking pictures of the burn pit from start to finish. They didn't
Right.
take any pictures of the burn pit. Well, I mean, they
Right.
did, but who knows at what point these things were taken.
Right. Right.
Yeah, so just looking at the steps that they didn't follow kind of paints the story for you. There's something definitively wrong when almost every protocol is ignored.
Right.
And then, you have a situation where, as of the 5th, when you find the vehicle, all you still have is a missing person.
Mhm.
But then you have the sheriffs personally showing up at the scene, and that's highly unusual. I mean, I can't even tell you how unusual it is to have the actual sheriff show up to a missing persons
Right.
case. And the fact that the missing person, and I kind of want to be sensitive to this, but Teresa Halbach was not a celebrity. She was not a major person in the community. She was not a person of high standing. I'll put it that way.
Or high risk because of
Right.
her age.
Yeah. Well, what I mean by that is I can see a sheriff showing up if it's say a government official that went missing, or a Hollywood celebrity or something like that, because then you're going to have a huge media incursion that's going to would normally call for it. But something like this it felt very unusual to me. So, and then of course the whole thing with the vehicle and what they didn't do with the vehicle was another protocol that they failed to follow. That kind of again paints the picture.
Okay, so let's just take that one. Since you've pulled it out, the RAV has been a very big thing in this case. There's so many people that believe there's this many, that many, there was this done to it, that done to it. That's fine. I'm all fine with everybody's theory on that. But the point of them finding it from the law side of view, what are the steps? First, they find it. Let's say they get the call. Okay, they got the call. So from that point on, why don't you paint me a picture of what would normally happen in a normal investigation of a missing person?
Gotcha. Well, yeah, and that's the most important part, to understand that when this vehicle is found, there was at that point there was nothing to point to foul play, to an actual crime being committed. All you have is a missing person, and now you've found their vehicle. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to document the scene. You're going to take have somebody take some pictures, or if depending on what it is, if it was a child, you're on a very strict time schedule. So maybe you just jump right in, but you're gonna document the scene as best you can. How was the vehicle found? What condition? That kind of thing. And then once you've made whatever that documentation is, be it pictures, be it taking notes, you're going to get into that vehicle, right? Because what you're doing is you're looking for somebody, and that's their vehicle. So what you're hoping is there's something in that vehicle that could possibly point you to the whereabouts or something. There's been cases where people that have been kidnapped have been able to leave something behind that might specifically point to where they were going or who might have taken them, right? So you got to get into that vehicle. And then you're going to document everything you find in there and then go from there. So the fact that they basically encountered this vehicle and then sealed it off completely, had nobody go into it or anything besides just looking through the windows, and that's not enough. You can't just
Right.
through the windows and call it good. That's not what it calls for. And then
You
from
need to
there,
see if there's anything in there, right?
right. And then from there, it took them, what was it, 14 hours to get it from the salvage yard to the crime lab. And again, why are you taking it to the crime lab when there's no crime that's been shown yet?
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah. So 14 hours before anybody actually gets into this vehicle. Now, as anybody knows, and especially in a case with a missing child, time is of the essence.
Yep.
So the fact that you wasted 14 hours is just unheard of. People should have been fired just on that alone. Because who knows? I mean, who knows if Teresa wasn't alive at that point? And if there was something in that vehicle that could have pointed to her and you didn't find it, and 14 hours later, and sometime within that 14-hour window, you can prove she was killed, that's not good. So, yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. They did not handle anything that would be normal. They didn't say there was blood in there, so they need to be looking for an injured person. They didn't they basically just cut it off? They never even searched for her anymore.
Right. Well, they never actually searched for her, period, from the start of this case. It seems to me nobody was ever looking for a missing person.
That's right.
It seems to me from the start it was get Stephen Avery.
Yep.
From the radio calls, from the dispatch records, all of that, none of it points to somebody actually looking for a person they're all looking for evidence to point to Stephen Avery, and it's
that's what I've always thought too. They never were looking for a missing person. They were looking for evidence of a murder and how to get to Stephen.
Yep.
So they, in your opinion, from what you've seen, and we know that Making a Murder, the docu-series, was just a window for you to go in.
Yeah, that's the documentary was just a jumping off point. We're way past the documentary at this point.
We're into reading documents, transcripts, trials, everything. We've done all that for all these years. So it's beyond the series, the docu-series. So in all of your writing reports or lack of reports, because I always say it's not what we're seeing, it's what we're not seeing.
Yep.
So in your view, from the law side, do you feel that they handled documentation correctly?
Oh, no.
Okay. I just want,
Yeah. Again, the documentation piece is just another factor that points you to something being drastically wrong.
Right.
Because you have officers writing reports that are contradicting other officers' reports.
Right.
You have a significant case of the left hand not knowing what the right hand's doing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the things that tells me that this was a crime of opportunity. This was a rushed job, which points me away from law enforcement being involved in the murder, because
I don't think they
so many mistakes were made that tells me that you had a factor or personnel in this case that weren't part of the process. Right. So they're doing things that was going against the story that was trying to be written.
Right.
And it was just become a mess. But no, there was the distinct thing here was the lack of reports.
Yep.
And any good investigator will tell you it's not only what you see, it's what you don't see.
It's what you don't see.
What you find or what you don't find.
Yep.
That can be just as important to a case.
And the time, their time thing is I don't know, the time line has always been really, really convoluted to me in this case.
Right.
That's another thing. If you don't have a straight timeline where you believe this and this and this and this happened, how are you going to prove this and this happened? You know what I'm saying? So to me, it's a lot of logical things that were done illogically. All right, whatever you mean, however you say it.
Who was doing what when?
Right.
The fact that we can't get virtually any records in terms of I think dispatch calls are what we're looking for the 4th.
Yeah.
An entire day they claim is no dispatch calls or no radio traffic, really.
Right in the middle of everything.
Yeah.
That just doesn't make sense at all.
No, that's a huge red flag, because I'm firmly convinced that something happened on the 4th that changed everything. Mm-hmm. Because you actually have personnel like Wiegert, who on the 3rd was still kind of looking at Zipper as being the last stop, and was still looked like he was attempting to run some kind of investigation. But something happened between like the evening of the 3rd and the morning of the 5th that changed everything.
Yeah. Is that anywhere near that phone call where he says the boss wants us to switch it up a bit? Yeah.
Boss has a change of plan.
Telling. Yeah, that's very telling. So even in like when you, I don't know, I know you were kind of like you've went into like the laundry case or just some cases that are socially out there for you. Yeah. So when you look at it, your first thing is to see how they're handling this, correct? I mean, that's how I look at it. I try to look at it. How are they handling this? How are they putting this out? Then you start to hear about like it just missing people, the way they handle that. There's some cases that they really blow up and go way up there, and you hear about this person, and then boom, the next case you won't hear hardly anything about, but it's a whole bunch of it happening on. Right. Now, to me, I don't understand that, and I don't know how the law looks at that. Do you have any idea how they handle those things when they come in?
Well, you're going to, in terms of the way the like, for instance, the FBI handled the laundry case, they did it the right way, and unfortunately, that frustrated a lot of people. But when you're an investigator, you have to keep certain facts back, because those facts may help you find, the actual criminal when it gets to that point. So the fact that the FBI was fairly tight-lipped about the case was the right way to do it. You can't just tell everyone what's going on.
Right. I believe that too.
Yeah. So I mean, it's just a matter of looking at the information you have and looking at somebody like Brian Laundrie. And again, it's what he's not saying or the way he's actually acting that tells you exactly what's going on.
Right. Right.
And so I knew early on, within the first couple of days, that Gabby was dead, and I was pretty sure that Brian did it,
Right.
simply because of the way he was acting and what was going on when he got back home. There was no doubt in my mind. It was just a matter of, where did he do it and where's her body? That was really the key for me.
Right. That's a good way to look at things. I mean, really to look at it. See, you're not looking at it out of feelings or anything else. You're looking at it logic. It's
more,
a logical,
more of an intuition.
Right. Yeah. Hi, everybody that's just coming in. Cotton Candy, I love you too. Thank you so much, sweetie, for your super stickers. I appreciate them. You know I do. Hi, Dark Side. Alice. I mean, I could say hi to everybody, but I didn't want to interrupt Zapper because it's very interesting. But if you guys have questions that you'd like to hear an answer to from the LE side, I don't think Zapper would mind answering them at all. He's very open, honest about this kind of thing, and I appreciate it. So now I'm going to get to a hard question that a lot of people might not be happy with your answer, but I get where you're at. I think I'm on the same page as you when it comes to Stephen and Brendan's case. They are two different cases. We look at them both totally different. A lot of people don't. They think they're intertwined. They are intertwined, but they're not intertwined the way, what I mean?
They're not intertwined in a sense that we'd like them to be, in terms of being able to use information from one case to benefit another, et cetera, et cetera.
Oh, here's a good question from Eve. What are the checks and balances to overcome issues?
I guess I would have to know what issues.
I do believe she means, how do you check and balance the good from the bad? How do you know? I believe that's what she means. If not, she'll text it in here, but I think that's what it is. Oh, thank you so much for the super sticker too. You too, Rosemary. Oh, I think so.
Yeah, let's see if she clarifies, because it would help to know what issue she's referring to. Then I can.
Yeah. If you could give me just another, I'm watching the chat here, Eve, so I will definitely get it up to him, but I'm sure I think I know what you're meaning, but I can't say it myself because
you were probably going to ask me about where I feel the case is going, or where.
Yes, where you think the case is going.
So Brendan's case, I hate to say it, but I think Brendan's case is done. I don't think there's anything that they could use to get Brendan out, because really the only thing that was used to get Brendan in was his confession.
Right.
And because by the Seventh Circuit's decision in affirming his confession and the U.S. Supreme Court's desire to not even hear the case leaves the Seventh Circuit's decision as the ultimate decision. Right. And so according to the Seventh Circuit, his confession is valid. It's in the record, the whole bit. So I know that people were wanting to understand if Brendan's lawyers could use the bones or anything like that as, for like a 97406. And I don't think that's going to be the case. I don't think anything with the bones is going to help Brendan.
Yeah.
So
what would they prove? That it was Teresa?
Right. Yeah.
I guess what would they prove? They're Teresa's.
Right. Because although Avery's case was killed basically by procedural bar, they wouldn't necessarily have that issue on Brendan's side, but I just don't know what the issue with the bones would be that would help Brendan get out, because even though they mentioned them at trial, they didn't really use them because they had the confession. That's all they had. So I think another argument I had was, even if they came in and brought the bones, the state would just say that the strength of the confession would overcome any issue you would try to bring him at the bones from a defense standpoint. So, and unfortunately, I think that would be the case. I think if it actually went to any kind of trial or hearing, the confession is going to overrule just about anything else you bring. Because even if they were to come in and somehow miraculously prove that the bones were either not Teresa or were Teresa's and they were returned, the basic question is going to be, but then Brendan confessed to it. So, yeah. So I don't know. That's what are the protocols that Ellie does to overcome shortcomings of how the case goes. Well, you really just you have to look for other factors. If you don't have a body, for instance, if you know a murder, or you really strongly believe that a murder has occurred, but you don't have a body, you just have to look towards other things. You have to look for witnesses. You have to look for other factors that may be able to point, to the direction that you think it's going. You really just have to think outside the box.
Yeah, I agree. Very limited characters. That's okay, Eve. If you got more to say, we'll get it in there. Linda, question: seeing the level of corruption in the case, where can people of Wisconsin turn for help in the case? Well, they can.
You can't. Yeah, it's all in the courts. So in the areas where you can elect court officials, do so. Do your research.
Get somebody in there that wants change, believes in.
And I know a lot of people. I know that there's talk about this being a Republican or Democrat issue. It's not.
It's not.
It has nothing to do with a political party at all. It just has to do with the politics, period, of the state. Because the folks you have in power right now are Democrats, and they're not helping at all.
Exactly.
So, it's not a party issue. It's simply a matter of understanding that if the truth were found in this case, either with Brendan or with Stephen's case, either one, it's going to possibly open the door to other cases, like, for instance, the Hotstetler case. If they can show, a level of corruption that goes beyond the norm, it could open it up to an outside organization like the FBI coming in and starting to look at other cases that the MTSO has handled. And because you have the state backing up MTSO, especially like on the 85 case, that opens up doors to looking at the state as well. So there's too many things that could go drastically wrong if an outside party can come in and start looking at the books. So I think the state is really looking to block that without actually blocking it. You know what I mean?
Right. Yep.
So not to say that all these court officials get together and say, hey, we're going to do this. It just happens that way. And, unfortunately, and I've said it before, Zellner kind of gave the state all they needed by stopping Avery's original 97406 motion and filing a new one. She gave the state every reason in the world to be able to shut it down by procedural bar.
Yeah, I agree.
So
I agree. That was a big mistake. Here, I think she means so digital or physical evidence, etc. Now, I'm not sure what you mean by that there, Eve. I know she's very factual. She donates to, she's signed up to be on EchoSearch. This girl has, she's really into the criminal justice. She's very factual driven. So I'm sure she just wants to know if this plays a big part, I would think, in it. I mean, I think it's an extension of the question she asked before. So
yeah, I think she clarified a little bit more on her next one. She said, is there anything you think could have been done differently? Well, absolutely. I mean, everything could have been done differently, because I mentioned earlier that I don't think law enforcement followed a single protocol in this case. So yeah, they could have actually followed the right protocols in terms of the evidence collection. There should have been pictures taken. There should have been a grid laid out. There should have been video taken. You don't just take pictures, you take video as well. If you've got the capability, you use it, because there's no such thing as too much, especially when you're looking at a murder case, because the more you have, the more options you have when you either find the right suspect or assist you in finding a suspect, either way. So yeah, they could have done everything differently in this case. Controlled access to the scene, taking pictures, taking video, actual document stuff,
in situ pictures before they did anything to it or moved it was very lacking in this case. I mean, like pictures of where they found things, they didn't document where they were found when they picked them up and put them into an evidence or whatever. There was so much of that.
Yeah.
That just right there to me is completely shady.
Now,
not allowing the coroner there,
yeah,
who would have handled things exactly, I'm sure, gritted it out and been exact.
Yeah.
Because
So
of a
these
human
these
body.
mistakes these mistakes weren't made simply because law enforcement was incompetent. These
No.
mistakes were made, and the things they did were done for a specific reason. So in that sense, there's nothing they could have done differently, because if your plan is to frame somebody, they did everything they needed to do, and they did it the right way, because eventually it worked. Now, anywhere
Right.
else, these kind of mistakes would have led to probably the case being thrown out, because there was a lot of things that I think Buting and Strang did wrong or dropped the ball on that could have prevented this from happening.
Yeah.
But they didn't. So,
well, what bothers me about that is their jury selection. I'm sorry that the jury selection is really convoluted in both cases to me.
well, just not only the jury selection, but the conflict of interest piece.
Oh yeah,
Just about every piece of valuable evidence that was found by MTSO.
right.
They should have been thrown out in court. But it was never fought that way, and that never happened. So they were allowed to use the bones and allowed to use the bullet and all that stuff.
Yeah,
So
they shouldn't have been allowed to. You're right. They shouldn't have, because it was MTSO that found every bit of evidence, which to me really goes towards the planting part. But when you're a defense lawyer and you bring planting in against the town you're at, it's pretty slim you're going to win. And that's exactly what happened to them. You know what I mean? The planting of the blood vial, all that, red letter day kind of stuff ended up not to be a red letter day. It just really kind of made you look like, are you going to blame every single, like Kratz said, I might not agree with everything he said, but when he said, are you going to blame every one of your Manitowoc officers for killing this girl? And no, no, we're not. We weren't beginning. There's only a few, but you're bringing it all in, and that's how they're going to look at that. They're going to look at that as, I can't believe all of our officers are this way. There's just absolutely no way. We don't have this happening all the time. This is not something that's normal. So they must have done their job right. I'm just looking at it from like a citizen's side of view. That's what I would be thinking.
Well, and unfortunately, that's what has hindered a lot of people about believing the truth about this case, is saying, man, there is no way that many officers, that many state officials, that many officials, period, could have all been involved in this just to get this one guy. No such thing. So he must be
Right.
guilty. They must have done it right.
Right.
Well, not really. And that was, it wasn't tough for me to believe the corruption. It was tough for me to believe the extent of the corruption, because I've mentioned before, you have Manitowoc, Calumet, the Wisconsin DOJ, and
Highway
the
Patrol,
all operating in concert in some form or fashion to make the case they did. So there had to be officials from each of these agencies that were in on it, or however you want to put it, that allowed the case to go the way it did.
Exactly.
Because I always talk about the Serpico effect. There could have been one officer or any group of people from any one of those agencies who had ethics and morals and who was involved in the case, that would look at something not happening that should have been happening and said, wait a minute, why aren't we doing that? Why aren't we taking pictures of the burn pit? Why aren't we doing a grid? Why aren't we, why isn't there a report being written about this or that? And something gets said. That didn't happen in this case.
Lack of integrity for sure.
Right. So, that either points to a much bigger circle than we think, or it points to people of power like Pagel or Peterson, Kosurik, somebody like that, having that much power to be able to put a lid over pretty much the entire community.
Yep.
And that's what seems to be the case here.
Yeah, I agree. And that's not something you see all the time. Anyway, if you do not ever have to be sorry you're a mod here, you can drop this anytime you want. It's a good cause. It's to help make sure that LE reports to the database properly. So everyone check it out. It's called murderdata.org. It's something she does. She wants the LE to report things correctly, like missing people that have been found, or Jane Doe's, or correct percentages, or what is it called? Statistics. I have a hard time saying that word, but yeah, that's a good cause. So don't ever have to worry about that. Eve, you can drop that link if you want. She said, thank you, Zapper, and checking for answering my muddied questions.
Absolutely.
Hey, look, if you can talk to me and figure out what I'm saying, ain't no problem with you guys. What is this? Evidence was collected by officers who were not qualified to collect it. Well, I don't know if they were not qualified to collect it. They all have had an evidence collecting course. Okay. Even Kucharski. But now, were they doing it correctly?
Yeah.
That, not that they weren't.
Qualification is one thing, but
right.
ignoring the protocols that go with that qualification is another. Yeah.
Exactly. I do believe they all had the qualifications, but they weren't correctly. That's my opinion. You know? Okay, Crockett says Willis was hard to understand, repeating strain, being allowed to do their jobs.
Yeah, Willis made many a questionable or decision on something that
like deleted phone calls.
Right. The whole voicemail issue, that was to call that irrelevant. How do you call that irrelevant?
You can't. I agree.
Yeah, there was a lot of things Willis did that really befuddles the mind in this case. There were a few times that he made decisions that went in favor of the defense, but more so the prosecution. So absolutely.
Exactly. Oh, no,
now does that mean Willis was in the camp? I don't know. I just don't think Willis was qualified. I think he's an incompetent judge, just like Angie sucks at this.
Yeah, she does.
You got somebody who basically handles traffic court, handling a criminal case all of a sudden, and the fact that she is buddy with Kratz or was in the past, yeah, that tells me all I need to know.
Oh, my dog has to guess what the dog is doing. I gotta go potty. I knew she'd do it sometime here, so I don't know. I don't know if do you have chat out available? No, I'll just make her cover up. She can just be quiet for a while. Shh, don't say anything. Be quiet. Go to sleep for just pretend. But let me see. He did task Kratz to find out where to come out. Strain of beauty, drop the ball. I don't know. I must have been missing.
Is she talking about the voicemails?
So many. Yeah, it must be. I'm not sure. It's a little baffling. It's a lot of baffling. I gotta tell you, it's like I said, there's a lot of cases. I truly believe that wrongful convictions in a whole start from the investigative part of it, where they step whose boots are on the ground first and how they handle it. I do understand that this is a case that you're not going to see everywhere. Stephen Avery case, it is a case against town against person or people. Right. Okay. And that is not a norm. That it is a very unusual circumstance. Stephen being wrongfully convicted twice in itself is like mind-boggling, okay, for the average person to understand. But there's a lot of cases of wrongful conviction that are just from lazy investigations.
Yeah, well, I mean, look at the Kevin Fox case, for example. They had the evidence in their possession that pointed to the right person, but they were so laser focused on Kevin because it was his daughter, and they had other completely circumstantial evidence or information that pointed to Kevin. That's where they lasered their focus, and that's what they stuck with. And thank God Zellner was able to find those shoes or figure out what was on those shoes.
Right.
Or the Melissa.
That's a by chance thing too. That's like a 1 in a billion by chance thing that you have a lawyer good enough to even think like that, first of all, and then to go out and search and find it. So that's you got a good lawyer. You know what I mean? Not most of us cannot even. Do we even think that we are going to need a lawyer like that ever in our life? Honestly, I hope not too. You know what I'm saying? So I just believe that I believe in the law, and I believe in the cops that are out there trying to do a good job. I do. But like you said, there are officers that are probably still working the job that really they shouldn't be working the job because it's not what they thought. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And I'm not going to say that that's right or wrong for me. I just, maybe you should take your own personal check on yourself. And if you're getting rode up or you're seeing things that are happening that's not right, you're just going along with it, maybe you're not in the right career. You might not
Yeah.
be fit to be a cop, and that doesn't mean you're not a good person. Just means that, hey man, my mind can't do this right, or I don't want to see this, or I definitely don't want to be a part of any of this, and I can't change it. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
if your boss is able to scare you or intimidate you into keeping your mouth shut, and
Hmm.
you keep going on with life as if nothing happened, even though you know something did happen,
Yeah.
that's on you.
Yeah.
You're a weak ass person,
Yep.
and I feel sorry for you.
Yeah.
No job is that important where you put job over somebody's life.
Right.
Uh, so if any Manitowoc officer or Calumet officer or somebody from the state knows that something bad happened here and they continue on with life as if nothing happened, yeah, go ahead and take care of yourself because
Yeah.
you
You're
don't
gonna
belong
meet your
with that.
maker someday or some way, right? Here's another one. I have one more little question. Do family members have any rights to know anything at all regarding investigation, or is it up to discrepancy?
Discretion.
Yeah. Well,
They
okay. I think she's talking specifically about a case that's going on now. If they're involved, if they are in law enforcement too, would like an answer for both of that. If they're not in law enforcement, but it's a victim's family, do they have the rights to know what's going on?
there's no right to know. There's nothing that says, if I have a piece of information, I have to tell you about it. No such thing.
Okay.
Um, Law enforcement's going to do their best to keep a family member informed to a certain extent. But just like with any other civilian, I'm going to keep important facts of the case to myself because I may need them for court. I may need them
Right.
to actually be
So
able to
they don't
verify.
muddy the court system, the jury
Right.
pool. Right.
Well, not just that, but I may keep some information back because it may be information only the perpetrator would know. And if
Right.
I let everybody know that, then that cat's out of the bag. Now I can't use that.
Right.
And you never know what information that's going to be. So you're going to keep as much of that information back as you can, because like I said, you never know what direction that information could point you.
Right.
So you're only going to keep them informed as much as you feel they need to be.
Right. Like, yep, we're still on the case. We're doing our best. Right.
Yep.
We got some new leads, maybe, but that's, basically it's going to be a cut and dry kind of thing. Okay.
Yeah.
Now let's say that the victim's family is an LE officer. And do they have a right to know any more, or do they treat them the same, just like a civilian?
So that can get a little tricky. You still want to treat them the same as you would any other family member, but obviously, badge with a badge is you're going to treat them a little differently behind the scenes. I don't know if you're really going to give them more information because if that family member is
Same
law enforcement,
reasons.
they're going to know the process,
Right.
and who knows what they may be privy to or not privy to. But even though you may treat them a little differently, I don't think you're going to give them any more information than you would any other family member. But
Okay.
it does get tricky.
Okay, now she wants to add an extension to that. If information given to the family, are they required to keep that public if told, or would the family tellingly know be able to leak what was said?
Well, that's kind of one of the reasons for why you don't, because if you do give something that, hey, thanks, Crockett, take
Thank
care.
you, Crockett. Yep.
Um, if you did give them something for some reason that you wanted to be kept back and they do leak it, that's kind of your fault as the investigator.
Right.
So no, you want to keep the loop closed as much as you possibly can.
Okay. In other words, a good investigative job and the officers working it would keep the main information close to themselves and would not let victims' families know, or even if they were a police officer, they wouldn't necessarily tell them because it could muddy waters, could it could hurt the investigation in a long
Yeah,
run.
because you again, you never know what a piece of information will do for you, and
Yep.
if you compromise that information in some form or fashion, and it turns out you needed that for trial, then you
Right.
just shot yourself in the foot. So
Yep. Conflict of interest or whatever.
anything, yeah,
Yep. Yep.
compromising a witness, if you compromise a piece of evidence, again, if it was something that possibly only the perpetrator would have known about, and you somehow make that public, you've shot yourself in the foot.
Right. Here she says I remember a case in the 90s where a family member was charged with obstruction but wasn't convicted because of it wasn't proven or written. So you mean hearsay, which I say is no say, but
Yeah.
in other words,
like,
can they be
sounds like that
charged
could
with
be.
obstruction if they are leaking something that was told to them?
Well, it may not even be something they were told. It could be something they already knew, and law enforcement knew, and possibly knew they knew that information or had that evidence or whatever the case may be. If that's the case, if you know something and I know you know it, and I've asked you about it, or something to that effect, and you're not giving it up, and somehow it comes out later that you had it all the time, yeah, I'm going to charge you with obstruction, and that could be problematic for you. But
Right.
I would have to be able to prove you knew that or had that, or something to that effect. So
Okay, so that's a little harder to prove.
yeah.
Okay, now
It always comes down to proof. You
right.
you can't ever. You may know something. You may know something for a fact, but you're going to need something to verify that.
Right.
To
Just
do
like
it.
that
So,
affidavit. You
yeah.
need
So
something
like
to back that.
in this case, we know for a fact Link dropped that key. We can't prove it unless Kucharski comes forward and says, "Yep, I saw him do it."
Yep.
Blah blah blah. So we're
Right.
never going to be able to prove that without one of those three people coming out and saying they did it, and that's not going to happen.
Right.
We know the bones were planted in the burn pit simply because the steps that weren't taken in
Yep.
the evidence collection process that tells us that. But again, we can't prove it without somebody that did it coming forward and saying, "Yep, we threw the
We
bones."
messed it up. We didn't do it right. Right.
We know a
Exactly.
lot of things for a fact in this case that we can't prove. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. Darkside wants to know your thoughts on Ryan being an untrained law enforcement
Yeah,
officer.
that's one of the dumbest statements I think I've ever heard, because Ryan has never had any kind of law enforcement training. So why would that even need to be said in that way? Again, I think that's just somebody trying to cover their ass for allowing somebody like Ryan to have access to a crime scene he never should have had access to.
Okay, Jinxie's got some questions now for you. So they may not have told the Hellebucks that there was signs of blood in their raft before they knew it. Is that what you mean?
Well, hell, I have no idea what they told the Hallbach family. But if I was an investigator on the case, and an actual ethical investigator, somebody who was actually trying to do the job the right way, and we found the vehicle, and I found evidence in the vehicle that there was blood. But again, I still don't know if I would bring that or pass that along to the family, because whose blood is it?
Yeah, you
If I don't
don't
know
know.
whose blood it is, I'm certainly
Right.
not going
And
to.
there's no body to say
Yeah.
that she's harmed. Right. So you might hold on to that until
Yeah.
further. Right. I agree. I agree with that. I have no more questions. How could you laugh?
Yeah, that's the most maddening thing about this case to me, is with all the information we have, all the documents, all the recordings, all the dispatch calls, all everything we have access to, all the brains that are involved on the supporter side in this case, you'd think we'd be able to at least narrow it down to
Mhm.
a person, but
Right.
we can't even do that. There are so
Nope.
many broken connections in this
Right.
case. Like for me personally, I can't tell you whether Bobby did or didn't do it. I can't tell you whether Ryan did or didn't do it,
Right.
because there's so much that I don't have to complete that circle for me to
Mhm.
definitively say, yep, it was Ryan, and here's why, or it was Bobby, and here's why.
Because there's always too many pieces missing to put that just the way it should be. The truth should come together real easy, and a lie does not.
Yeah. They did such a shitty job in this case that I have no recourse. I have, like I said, I have nothing I can use to complete that circuit, to close that loop, to narrow it down.
Right.
Now maybe it's out there and we just haven't found it yet. I don't know. I mean, we certainly have enough information that, like for Bobby, for example, there's evidence about the RAV that could point to Bobby not being a viable suspect.
Right.
But we still have a lot of his mannerisms, the things he did, the way he acted on the stand, that tells me he's still part of this somehow. Mm-hmm. What part of that is, I don't know. So because I can't definitively rule him out, I have to keep him in the suspect talk.
Right. Egyptian Mania says, if y'all have noticed, Crotch Burn, hey, that's kind of a new name for a Colburn, is the only person trying to sue Netflix and the makers of Man because he knows, we all know he helped screw him over twice. Well, no, honestly, that we were just discussing that the other day, and it is funny that he is the only one, but he is also suing on opinion of something that it just can't be proven. There's just no way he's going to win this at all.
I have a lot of questions about why Colburn filed this lawsuit. It makes zero sense. It has the potential to open a lot of doors that I don't think Colburn would want open, or Greaseball, for that example.
Right.
But here we are. They did it, and we're closing in on depositions being done. So I don't know. I'm just as confounded as anybody else as to why Colburn did this.
Right.
I think when he first opened it, I think he was hoping for a quick settlement. I think he was hoping to make a quick buck. But he was too stupid to realize Netflix was never going to do that.
Yeah.
I could have told him that, but he must have got bad advice from somebody, because he did it, and he's still going. I
am too. I'm waiting for him to fall on his face. Why is DNA not used?
Now?
Or disproven now?
The problem is what are we going to, what DNA are we talking about? Are we talking about the bones? We can't use the bones now because procedural bar. So we can't use it. Well, we can't use it in Stephen's case. And again, I haven't thought of a viable way that they could use it in Brendan's case. Because although they were mentioned in Brendan's trial, but I don't think they were ever used in Brendan's trial. So I don't know what argument they could bring to say we deserve to have access to whatever bones are there, and then use that as a vehicle to jump into. Well, we could have used the bones, but they got rid of them. So
there are some things that aren't tested,
right?
Like the RAV. There's things that are in the RAV, but they're not releasing it. So that's another thing. You're not getting it released, so you're not going to be able to test it.
Yeah.
So, she goes, dang it, another question. It's okay, Eve. That's what we're here for. During the investigation, if you, as an outsider, feel it is corrupt or questionable, what and who should you report it to? Do you need proof?
Wow. Well, let me think about that. So it takes an outside agency to investigate another law enforcement agency. And it would take the state, if it was county, or if it's a state agency, you're looking at federal, or federal can step in and touch any county, state, etc. But you have to first show evidence and prove that it was corrupt. And again, so just like with the Avery case, we know they're corrupt. We can point to circumstances that show something is corrupt from an opinion standpoint, but we don't have anything we can use as actual positive evidence to say, here's what shows they're corrupt. All we have is innuendo and opinions.
Right. So as an outsider, you'd have to have proof, and you'd probably go to what would you go to if you're reporting a police department?
Yeah,
you would go there.
You have to push to the State Department of Justice if it's a city or county, or you have to go directly to the FBI
FBI, TBI, whatever they call it in that
Yep,
state. Right.
yep,
Like here we got the BCA, Bureau
yep.
of Criminal Investigation or whatever it is, BCI, whatever it's called. So that's what we have in Minnesota. So in fact, I don't live very far from it. I live right down the street from it.
And
So
so that's exactly what you had in the 85 case. They had enough evidence because of what came out in the depositions to prove, because they had documents that proved it, that there was corruption going on. So it went to the state, and what did the state do? They dropped the ball and ruled in favor of no corruption.
right.
So
So basically,
you're
you
only
report to a
to a higher
higher authority and then decide if the proof holds water to start. Yep.
correct. Yep. That's exactly it. If the agency that I go to can collect enough, whether it's circumstantial or verifiable, to say that yes, I see corruption here as a law enforcement agent, so now I can use this as a jumping off point to start an investigation. Like I said, that's what happened in the 85 case.
Right.
But then the agency you had doing the investigation was themselves corrupt. So
Yep.
yeah.
Exactly. So I don't understand why KZ doesn't go federal now.
So
well, you heard her yourself.
Yeah, she can go federal, but the problem with going the federal route is the whole purpose of the federal system is to say whether or not the state court system went above and beyond what a reasonable other court would have done in the same situation. And EDIPA is going to wipe that out. And the reason that is because, if a good thing to do is go watch Tracy Struncey's video that she did after the COA's decision.
Yeah.
She lays it all out very succinctly. Because KZ dropped Avery's original 946 motion, she created the procedural bar that the state was able to fall back on to basically eliminate all of her arguments.
Yep. Every bit of evidence, everything else, right?
So as much as we hated the COA's decision, the COA made the right decision.
They did it by the letter of the law.
Right. So KZ literally has really no argument to make to the federal side of the House that's going to hold any water. Right. So EDIPA is going to wipe out any argument or virtually any argument she has to make.
I was just going to say that EDIPA will wipe it out because that's how the federal courts will look exactly at what the state court did, at what state level it stopped, and what they said, and how they followed the letter of the law. If they find something funny there, then they will take it on. Other than that, they're going to validate what the state said. That's how I know of it. So what are the chances of clemency? Well,
I don't think there's any chance of clemency because again, if something is found to point to the corruption in this case, it's going to open up lots of doors that nobody in the state wants opened. So it's a political football. And governor after governor, AG after AG is just going to keep punting it down the road.
Yep. They're just going to keep it off of their doorstep.
Until the boys are dead or until something else happens.
Yep. Exactly. Well, thank you, Eve. We do believe in facts here, just like you. So, and the Supreme Court didn't want to hear Brendan's for sure.
Nope.
So, and they said no to Zellner too, in fact. So, and Alice, I agree with you 100%.
Yep.
It's one of them laws that changed, even though they said it was for the anti-terrorists, it completely changed appeals for everybody, and especially for the innocent.
That's the most horrible thing about that law is the only reason it was ever enacted was to stop Timothy McVeigh from having a bunch of appeals. They wanted him in the gas chamber as quick as they possibly could.
Yeah.
And so EDIPA was written to stop, to make sure that happened. Yeah. And unfortunately, they screwed over every person who could fall into the wrongful conviction category.
Exactly.
They destroyed it. And clearly nobody in the law community with any power gives a damn because nobody has done anything to change it. EDIPA's been on the books since 94. So yeah.
And Clinton himself said, hey, I made a mistake with that. Well, a lot of good it does you to admit you made a mistake and not change it in any way at all. And that is going to take an act of Congress. We know that.
Yeah. Only Congress can either get rid of EDIPA or amend it or override it somehow.
He represents in interviews under siege. I don't know what that's about. I must be missing something. But well, you know what? I can agree to this one too. Both of them, they can get the one finger flag.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I've said for quite a while now, the only thing that's going to break this case for either Stephen or Brendan is going to be one of the inside circle, and I mean one of the people actually doing the planting or involved in the framing directly, one of them coming forward and spilling the beans. That's the only thing that's going to break this case. The only thing, because there's no evidence left behind that's going to prove anything. There's no peripheral witness that's going to be able to come forward and give verifiable, documentable evidence to prove it. So it's going to take one of those inside circle to break. Aside from that, the case is done.
Yep. Oh, Mountain Girl, you're going to have to go back and watch for sure. You would really have liked this stream, dear. This would have been one for you. All about facts. I think we helped answer some questions, and if you guys have any other last minute questions, that'd be great. But I try to keep the streams to at least an hour so people will rewatch them. I want them to get this information. Of course, it's been excellent having you, Zapper. I knew it would be a great stream. I knew a lot of people would get question answered from a true perspective of an ex-LE, ex-law enforcement, ex-veteran. And thank you very much for what you did. I appreciate that. I am all 100. My mother will be thrilled I had a veteran on my show. She supports you guys all the time. She's constantly giving when she can, and 100% flies it all over her car. Thank you very much, veterans, so I truly appreciate it myself. But if you guys have, you need to, honey, because you will really enjoy some of the very honest answers that Zapper was willing to give. He's a really great person. You can find him on Twitter if you Twitter. He's also in Foul Play Discord. He's around. You can find him around. I'm sure he'll be in my chats and things like that. And, you guys on the other side there that have joined me, Mountain Girl, Eve, you need an XLE answers, go right ahead and ask him. I'm sure he's definitely up and honest about what he thinks. and he really does give it to you as a reality. It's not a pipe dream, hope and this and that, where a lot of us really get wrapped up in that hope and I want it, and we keep fighting it. And I probably still will do that. But reality of it is that the courts are done with these cases.
I'll never tell Zellner to give up, but unfortunately, that's kind of where I stand. I feel like I have a pretty good idea of what will actually take to win the case. And Sawinski's not it. Don't hang your hat on Sawinski.
Yeah, no, there's nothing to back that. There's nothing there. She would have put it in that motion. She would have to, I would believe. So anyway, see, they're all thanking us for the good content. Trying to contain my questions. We got to figure it out. So anyway, thank you. What does this say? Me, hope. Yeah, no, we're never going to give up, ever. First time seeing you live, CC. Well, thank you, the White Rabbit. It's very much an honor to have you here. Go back and start at the beginning. I wish you would have been here at the beginning, because we give clear, factual things here. We want to be factual. There's too much opinion. I mean, we give our opinion, but we stick to the facts on my channel. And I really want other people in the communities to start getting together and seeing how many resources we really have in the supporters that watch us. That's what I'm all about, getting everybody matters. So I take people right out of my chat and come on my show, and let's find out what you know and how you know it and what you do about it. So I really, really appreciate that. Oh, thank you for becoming a member under your scars. I appreciate that so much. Welcome to the fam, factual fam. Anyway, Zapper, it's been excellent having you. I appreciate it very much.
Yeah, anytime.
Yeah, see, you guys check out Zapper on Twitter. It's in the description. Thank you, everybody, so very much for being here. You all matter 100% on my channel. Subs and supporters and creators should all be together. So I appreciate you very much. And we'll talk to you later. Let me see if I can put my exit video on. There we go.
If you have desires, a girl in your life is making you feel that fire. Go fight for her, man, go die for her, man. Cause you only have one life, one chance to do it. One chance to prove it to yourself, so don't lose it. You got this, fam, just keep pushing on through it. One day you'll look back so glad you pursued it. Yeah, things are gonna get better real soon.